But if you set it up and you spend the time thinking on the front end and then you plan it out, now you have done most of the work. The only thing left for you to do, maybe you need to tweak at some point, but it's just to follow the plan and don't change it, because if you have shiny object syndrome like I do, you see that shiny thing like Dory and you're like, oh, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here. You can't do that because you're not going to get the real results. Welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Dr. Kiiyonna Jones.
I'm Christal P, the Beauty NP.
You guys, we kind of stumbled on this 3-part series for 2024 that just happened organically. But I'm really excited because as we were talking, I realized that this is something extremely important on how we prepare for the year. Here's a hint, you guys. It's not just setting New Year resolutions. It's not that, you guys. I know I used to do that, but you have to be more practical about how you're going to achieve your goals. And so that's what we're talking about. So if you didn't listen to our first episode, we were talking about planning for 2024. And Christal and I were just talking about some of the steps that we take to plan and prepare for 2024. So make sure you go back and listen to that. This episode, though, I'm excited because we're going to talk about something that I feel is so diluted in the marketplace. And I think people don't really realize the effort that's required for it. And that is setting goals. Let me tell you guys a real story. When I first started as an entrepreneur, I used to set goals like, for example, I want to bring in $10,000 a month. That was my goal. And it stopped there. And I don't know if I thought miraculously some kind of divine intervention was going to happen and I was going to achieve my $10,000. But my goal was to generate revenue of $10,000. And that is where I stopped it. Then I got even more sophisticated and I was like, I'm going to get 10 people to pay me $1,000. And that's going to be my $10,000 goal. And it stopped there. The reality of it is so much more than that, you guys. You have to have strategies in place. You have to be guided by data, which I did not know anything about. And it has to be actionable steps that are going to lead to results that can be predictable. And so now when I do it, I don't care what I think. What does the data say is going to happen? And then I have to adjust sometimes because I'm a grandiose, like I'm going to make $1 million bazillion dollars. And then I get down to it. I'm like, well, that's not practical. I don't have X amount of dollars to run an ad, so I can't do that. And it's only one of me. I'm doing all these other things. I don't have the time to do that. So then you start getting more practical as you grow as an entrepreneur. What is your process, Christal, to set goals? What do you do? How do you do it?
So yes, much the same. I would say this is probably the first year I didn't even think about resolutions. It was more so goal setting, I guess, and then the steps, like you said. So now how I do it is I only take 2 or 3 big goals for the year and work on that versus trying, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start that, I'm going to start that. What are 3 things that I would be so happy seeing in my business by the end of the year? And that's it. And kind of working from there. Once I have a pretty good aspect on that, then throughout the year, I could start adding more things. But I think now it's best for me to just take 2 or 3 big goals that I like to see and work towards that. Then after I do it, usually on some sort of document, and then just write those things out and then also write the steps in between how I'm going to get there. One thing that having that Tiff spoke about and we talked about is breaking those down into the smaller goals. And I will say that my VA has been making those little checklists. So I am getting ooh, I got a little checklist, release from the checklist. So just doing that really honing in this year a lot around my virtual assistant and having her helping to fill in the gaps for me. And yeah, so my planning is around that, taking big goals, only a few for the year, and then breaking those down into the strategic steps that it's going to take to get there, and then having my VA kind of formulate that into some sort of checklist for me to be able to get that handled.
Yeah. And I love that you said 2 goals. Like, do you remember when you first started? You had how many goals were on your list that you thought you were going to? 12
like
months
10.
is so small now.
Yes.
In 1 year, you think you're going to just redo everything that you've done. You're going to add all these services and treatments. And it's really not practical. And to be honest, what I started to feel was defeated because most times, well, all the time, 100% of the time, I never completed all of the goals that I set for myself. And that was because, first of all, I didn't have action steps to take, but also because I had set too many goals, right? And a lot of times the changes that we can make can be one simple thing that can be compounded over time and can change your life, right?
Yes.
So one of the things I do in the Nurse Boss Mob community that I did, we had a challenge and I said, you have to think about one thing you want to do that's going to be leveraged though. So it has to be big enough that it can affect multiple aspects of your life, right? If you do it, if you stay consistent at it, what is that going to be? And so instead of saying, for example, if people want to lose weight, right? Instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to drink only water. I'm going to eat only cabbage. I'm going to make sure I take all my vitamins. I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. If you go from not doing any of those to thinking you're going to accomplish all 5 of those and be successful, you are sadly mistaken. Now, if you say, you know what, for the next 3 months, I'm just going to focus on exercising 30 minutes a day. That's all I got, 3 to 4 times a week. And that is your commitment. And then once that becomes a routine for you, then the next step you may want to do is modify your diet, or you may want to add on weight, or you may want to, but we try to change. So, and I'm guilty of this. So, I'm talking about myself too. We try to change so many things at one time when it doesn't even take that. Like if you go from drinking sodas every day or juice every day to just drinking water, that's going to positively impact your overall health. And so the same is true with business. I've learned like it's simple, but we just like, oh, I'm going to post 5 times a week and I'm going to get a TikTok account and a Facebook account and a YouTube account and a this and that account. And then we're wondering why we are so drained. And not only that, we're unsuccessful. And then we become unsuccessful and then we feel defeated. And then we're like, why did I do that? So one of the things I did when it came to my goal setting for my business was there's something called Pareto's Law. And it's from the book. Well, it's beyond the book, but in the book, he elaborates on it, which is the 80-20 rule. And what I decided to do is look at my social media, and I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, where is 80% of my business coming from? And then for 2024, if I want to reach my goal, all I have to do is give more to that versus trying to be all things to everyone, everywhere. Where are those 2 social media platforms that I get 80% of my clients from? And then I'm going to have to go deep on that. And that's what I decided to do for 2024. That came because I set goals and then I had to really look at my business and say, okay, does it make sense to stay on TikTok? Like, does it make sense to have this Facebook group? Like, what is it requiring of my resources? That's how you have to look at goal setting when it comes to business. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say my strategy as well, too, is just where can I spend the most time and then break that down and kind of filter that into the others as far as social media platforms. And then for myself, I actually have gotten and still get a lot of clients off of just community outreach that I've done. I'm really leaning into community, like getting really involved in my community as far as like meeting people, other business owners, chamber, just really putting feet to the pavement and doing that. And then having my social media, just, continuing my YouTube page, doing those videos, breaking it down, putting it on Instagram. Because and through planning, you'll be able to find what, like you were saying, what major thing can I do that will affect everything, so that I don't have to put my energy into 20 things.
Leverage.
We get so burnt out by that, and I think we both were just like, this year we cannot do that. We cannot.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Even with the podcast, you guys, full transparency, like we became very intentional this year with our podcast, like, and how we are going to batch create, and like being not just flying by the seat of our pants. Now, don't get us wrong. We do it ugly, and we're proud of that. I think we wear that as a badge of honor, because other than that, we overthink and rethink and we won't do anything. So we got to put ourselves out there. But like now we're at the point where we're like, okay, how is this going to fit into our life? Like how do we want to create this content and do our interviews? What does that look like as far as our business model? So we were becoming way more intentional. It's funny. I was just looking up, how many calories does it cost to think is what I looked up.
What did it say?
And it said between 300 to 500 calories a day we spend on thinking. That's how much we spend on thinking. And so and that's just on a regular given day. So imagine us as entrepreneurs, how much calories we burn. That's why we always, like, we feel exhausted when we do small sprints, like a 2-hour webinar or a 3-hour webinar. We feel so overworked because we're working our brain, right? And when you're in business as an entrepreneur, there is a lot of thinking involved. There is a huge amount of thinking involved, and because you have to be intentional, or else you're going to be wasteful in your business, right? And if you waste anything in your business, then that means you're losing money, because that's what we're in. We're in business, so it's about bringing in revenue. And I think people don't realize that. But if you set it up and you spend the time thinking on the front end, and then you plan it out, now you have done most of the work. The only thing left for you to do, maybe you need to tweak at some point, but it's just to follow the plan. And don't change it, because if you have shiny object syndrome like I do, you see that shiny thing like Dory and you're like, oh, I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here. You can't do that because you're not going to get the real results. You haven't even given it enough time to work.
Yeah. I think sticking to it and giving it time to work is definitely something that new entrepreneurs do, because we're scared, and we, after you've been through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of business, you're kind of like, okay, it's not working right now. I know what I need to do, or I see where I need to do, or I need to adjust. But in the beginning, you're just like, it's not working. I got to pick something else. Oh, that girl on Instagram said that service is working for her, so I'm gonna go over there and do that service. Besides sticking with something long enough to see it through and to see the gaps, because guess what? When you choose that other service, that's going to come along with the same thing that you haven't fixed in the first place.
Yeah, it's
entrepreneurship is a lot of learning about yourself, and a lot of that's what I learned last year, is a lot of learning about yourself and a lot of self-reflection, and just not fighting for your limitations, as you always say, and just fixing those things that as an employee can go under the radar. Like, if you're late, like they always say, if you whatever you do in work will follow you. But if you're late at work 2-3 minutes, like, okay, you might be late, you might fly under the radar. But if you're late for clients, then that means you're losing money. So if you're that type of person who can never be on time for your clients' appointments, or a procrastinator, or those things will show up in your business, and then it's up to you to have to fix those things yourself, because there's nobody there who's going to give you a write-up if you don't act right, if you will. So it's a lot of self-reflection in business, and just learning, just paying attention to what works and what doesn't for you.
And you said nobody's going to give you a write-up. Yeah, they're going to give you a Google My Business write-up where your whole brand reputation is going to be impacted. That's the write-up. And believe me, people, yeah, people are not, they're not forgiving at all. They are not forgiving. So you definitely want to take that in consideration because your brand, and it's hard to come back from a tarnished brand. It's really hard. Okay, so we were talking about just back to the goal part, I feel like unfortunately some of these lessons they came directly from L's that we have experienced. And there's only so many that we, even as nurse coaches, can help people through, because some of them will be very specific to your business, your life, your industry, will be unpredictable. So I think where the thought comes in, where you were talking about, is being able to reflect back over your year, and then you set your goals. Like, there has been growth. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or not. Last year, you grew. You learned. Now, it's your responsibility to make sure that does not happen again in 2024. Yep. And a part of your goals, when you're setting your goals, you need to make sure that, so one of my things, and I talked about this on my mindset, I forget the name of it, but the mindset piece of the podcast for me with Dr. Jones, I realized, like, I'm not growing too big too fast this year. I told my team, like, listen, y'all, we in it. My core is what we're working with. We just got one more position to open up for, and that is it. I am not in a rush. I am not like, that was a lesson, right? So when I'm setting my goals, I'm like, we got this one role that we need to fill. That's it. And then I'm not so quick to be like, okay, it has to happen in 30 days. Nope. Mid-year by June. Like, I extended so much because I know that there's day-to-day business as usual that has to happen too. And you don't factor that in. So I definitely feel like, even whether you're a business owner or not, you have to be very, very careful with the goals you set. You do have to set only a few goals, 2 to 3 goals. That's it for the year. And just imagine if you stay consistent at that over time, that's going to be compounded. Don't do too many things because you're setting yourself up for failure. And nobody likes failure. We like to feel good. We like to feel accomplished. And like you said about checking off those boxes, we like to get that boost of dopamine when we check off those boxes. And if you created a laundry list of boxes, you're not going to be able to check them all off. And I think that's a recipe for a disaster, or at least to your ego anyway.
Yeah. And this year, I'm just so content with just trying to get things to run smoothly. The 2, 3, like, I'm good with that. I don't have to make $1 billion. Like, just let things run smoothly and let me feel like I have a handle on it, and I'm good with that for the year. So just making that small. And then next year I can worry about scaling that system that I got into place, those systems, scaling that to the next level. But if I'm trying to make $1 million this year, get the business together, rewrite all my protocols, do this, like, it's just too much. And I'm just tired of living in overwhelm and feeling like there's so much. So 2 to 3 things, especially with us having 2 to 3, 4 businesses. So it's like, we already have the, the True Savvy side, the podcast side, the med spa side, the family and home side. So it's like, I can't afford to just have a million things going on. So I'm content with just that. So I don't feel like, oh, that's too small. Like, small goals is okay. We want to have a big vision, but for the goal for the year, or even for, the first half of the year, just setting goals to get us there, and then worry about the rest later, to avoid getting overwhelmed and burnt out.
Yeah. My coach, he says, you're a 6-figure hustler until you create systems. And when you create systems, that's when you really have the true freedom. And then that's how you get to the 7 figures. It's not by being a hustler and like just working. No, it's about systems. And honestly, I have a newfound respect for systems. And I told my team, this year is our year of systems. Like, this is what we're going to be working on, because the more I create systems in my business, the more freedom that I will have to be the face of the business, the more I'll be able to show up for the business. And I think that right there is key, that a lot of times we miss out on, because you cannot, and I didn't realize it because, you all, everybody thinks they can do it, right? We all do that. It's like, oh yeah, they have a hard time, but that won't be me. Cause like, I'm me, I'll be able to figure it out. I've did this, I've done that, I've survived that. It's like, no. You need systems in place in order for you to really, really be the person, the CEO of your business. And I think goals, setting those realistic goals, and then whatever systems you need to put in place to support those goals and the achievement of those goals is where the energy should be focused for 2024. Especially for those of us who I can still consider myself a new entrepreneur. Like 6 years is not a long time at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel like I have such a long way to go. So you guys are new, make sure when you're setting your goals, don't do too much. It really is about the action steps and the discipline, because it's what you do when you don't feel like it is really what moves the needle. Okay. I was going to say something, but I'm going to be quiet about that. Right. So anyway, you guys, again, this is our part 2 segment for our 2024 set. We're talking about setting goals. This series is something that just came out about. And so we're happy to be able to talk to you guys on a more vulnerable, open, us being transparent about our business journey perspective. So I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Again, give us feedback. Don't be stingy. Share it with other healthcare entrepreneurs who you think can find value. Again, our mission is to give more than we receive, and we hope that we are doing that. Make sure that you are subscribing and that you're following us on our YouTube channel. It's Nurse Boss Shift. Make sure you're following us on the YouTube channel. Anything else, Chris, before we head out? Am I missing anything? No, yes, no.
No, just make sure you leave us a comment, guys. We hear all the time that you are listening to our podcast. It's getting you through your shifts. You listen to it on the way home, but we don't see that reflected in the comments. So, and by comments, I mean, wherever you are listening to this podcast, please just go ahead and give us hopefully 5-star review and let us know how you're liking the podcast. That would really help us. And it will also help other nurses find and discover us. And that's all.
Yes. All right, guys. Until next time. See you soon. Bye.